Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Got Betrayed and Become the Crimson Dragon God of Arcadia Season 2 Part 1. Before we start, please go support Au.RageRevan and Darkdecade97 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Season 2 Chapter 3. Meeting of the Factions. In Draken's world, Earth DXD airspace. Draken was inside his own ship, the infamous Black Sun, which he had gained from defeating and killing Nicholas. Earlier, he managed to lure out Carmilla by tricking her in the form of Nicholas. She underestimated Draken's intelligence and ingenuity, since he observed how Nicholas acted with her and played accordingly, using his charms to inform Carmilla about his secret meeting. Using a hidden power, he was able to mimic Nicholas and lure Carmilla, allowing Draken to eliminate and kill her for good as well. He tortured her for days, using the same techniques she once used for her guinea pigs and experimentations. She resisted, but as time passed, Draken succeeded to break her. He enjoyed seeing her suffer, and when he became bored, he killed her off as well. Her body was soon disposed of and destroyed, leaving nothing behind. He even hunted down Frisia as well, making sure she was also eliminated. He hunted almost everyone that is a threat or obstacle to his goals, thus leaving only those that are truly loyal to him. He had succeeded in a place that Nicholas, Vlad and Carmilla could only dream of: destroy and conquer Arcadia. Amidst time, Draken pressed a switch underneath his throne as two troopers. Their armor is described to look very streamlined, almost robotic in appearance. The armor plating is that of red, gray and black, with small light blue panelings that lit up the armor, along with a yellow marking on their shoulder armor to indicate rank. They also appear to have no visor and instead have a large red metal piece on their helmet. These are the Black Arms Royal Guard. Yes, Lord Draken. One of the royal guards asked, to which Draken responded, "Contact General Taurus and bring him here, I want to have a word with him." The other royal guard responded, "As you wish, Lord Draken." The two guards left as Draken's television feed showed him a shocking reveal. He looked to see a scene in the underworld where his former brother Hyoudou was marrying the girls of his universe. The girls comprised of Rias, Akeno, Kaneko, Asia, Zenobia, Irina, Roswis, Ravel, Gabriel, Ingvild, Tsubaki, Sona, Kusha, Sakvara, Athena, Artemis, Laisha, Pinemu and Yusaka. He was seething in anger, to the point of releasing extremely dark aura that made the Black Armed soldiers pale, understanding that he was angry at whatever he was witnessing. How dare these bastards have happiness when they ruined any possible chance of my happiness? I will make them pay in blood for what they have done to me, Draken shouted in fury. He was releasing the aura till suddenly a message came on his scroll pad. As he lost his anger for a moment and sighed, seeing that the general has arrived. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, he stopped releasing his aura and looked towards the soldiers, who went back handling their business. While they were loyal to Draken, they feared his anger. The man that was leading them eliminated any and all possible competition to the Black Arms and the throne of Arcadia. He was not someone they wanted to cross, and those that knew him feared him to the point of no return. Except for those that are his allies, who feared and respected him. Soon enough, the general came inside. He had longer hair and wore a mask that covered his entire body. He wore jet black armor, which was akin to a bodysuit, made of the same liquid as the Grim Pools, but modified to create a sort of magical armored suit that could even take damage from a Satan class or God class being. He wielded his katana and looked almost akin to a fallen samurai. He had two huge horns coming from his head. This was Adam Taurus, one of Draken's top and strongest generals. "You called, Lord Draken?" General Adam Taurus spoke with a bow as Draken spoke. "Rise Taurus, I called you here to ask about something here. I believe you should see this." Draken pointed to the television screen as Adam looked towards the screen and asked, "Is that your?" Draken nodded as he spoke. "Indeed it is him." "So Adam, is your battalion ready?" "Indeed it is, your highness." "Shall I commence the attack?" Draken got up from his chair and spoke. "You may, it is time to crash this wedding and deal with my former friends and family." Draken spoke with a dark grin. He was really going to enjoy tormenting his so-called friends and family members once and for all. A few days later, in Arcadia Issei's world, Jean's office, 9:30 a.m. Jean was working in her office, seeing the recent wars that were happening. It was not much, just usual skirmishes being put down by either Issei, John or some other generals. She was looking over the recent reports and successes that were happening. "Well, my work here is done," Jean spoke with a deep breath, and soon enough, as suddenly a soldier knocked the door as Jean spoke. "Yes, you may come inside." "Supreme General, I have an urgent message." An Arcadian lieutenant comes inside with a report and a scroll that would replay a certain message as Jean speaks. "Go on, what is the matter?" The lieutenant takes a deep breath and speaks. "My lady, there has been a message that has come from an undiscovered planet. They claim to come in peace." "Show it to me." Jean looked at the report and became surprised. She recognized it to be one of the Earth's. She then played the recording as she heard what the person said on the other side. "Greetings Arcadians, my name is Azazel, the former Governor General of the Fallen Angels. I am one of the faction leaders belonging to Earth. I come in peace, and I want to know that you are housing some dangerous criminals, like Hades and Nyx. We only wish to talk, so that we can negotiate their capture. Please, let us know if you wish for an alliance, we only come in peace. Jean analyzed the recording, the voice seemed to be from a very sketchy guy. Jean then asked. This message, when did we even receive it? Jean asked to the lieutenant as he had responded, our commander had received it an hour ago, we traced its source, and it is far, far away from Arcadia. We traced it to one of the Earths in the Milky Way galaxy. Jean thought for a moment and she remembered about the Milky Way galaxy, it was the same galaxy that Issei and the others came from. She narrowed her gaze and knew what she had to do. I will contact Issei about this, he will know what is going on. From what I can tell by this message, these are people that know about Issei's background, and from what I can tell, they presume that these two are criminals. We need to talk this about Hades and Nyx to Issei, and maybe Juniper. She always knew about Issei's past and often kept it hidden. Jean spoke with a thought as she continued. You may take it from here, and do not speak about this to anyone till I say so and report this to your commander. The lieutenant nodded as he spoke, as you wish, Supreme General. The lieutenant left, as she soon made a call to both Juniper and Issei, and requested them to arrive as soon as possible. She patiently looks at the report. She wonders what Issei meant to them, as she could only hope for a proper explanation. She also contacted Elizabeth and Artemis as well. Scene change. A few minutes had passed and they all managed to arrive, as Issei spoke with a concerned tone. To call us all here, what happened? Jean Issei asked with concern, even Juniper was surprised that she had called all of her sisters here. All of them being here meant something huge was off. Indeed, something has happened, Issei here, listen to this. Jean played the recording, as Issei widened his eyes recognizing who was in the tone. Juniper sensed this and became concerned. Greetings Arcadians, my name is Azazel, the former Governor General of the Fallen Angels. I am one of the faction leaders belonging to Earth. I come in peace, and I want to know that you are housing some dangerous criminals, like Hades and Nyx. We only wish to talk, so that we can negotiate their capture. Please, let us know if you wish for an alliance, we only come in peace. Artemis and Elizabeth were confused, Hades and Nyx as criminals. They have been nothing but heroes and very influential beings in their respective kingdoms. They looked towards Juniper who kept her hand on them, assuring they will explain them later. Even Jean was confused seeing the shocked expression of Issei. Juniper, on the other hand, was seething. She hated those from Issei's world, especially the original three leaders of the factions. The one she hated was Serzich's. Her anger was not lost to the others, as they became confused as to why was she this angry. But a voice snapped out of her anger. No, Issei spoke with sadness, as he was worried. He then spoke, guess my peace is gone. Juniper looked at him sadly, as Artemis asked her brother-in-law, who is this Azazel? Juniper kept her hand on Issei and spoke to Artemis. It's a long story, Artemis. I have not been telling it to anyone is because, Issei's past. All I can say is that it haunts him even now. He has just recently gotten over his past, around a year before, but I am not sure if I should tell us. Jean looked at Issei, who was still looking away in sadness, as Jean spoke. Ice, you can tell us, what caused you to become so afraid of your own past? Artemis nodded in agreement as she spoke. Jean is right, we are almost akin to family. You shouldn't hide things like this from us. Elizabeth spoke in agreement. Your past, if sister is right about it. It must have been really dark for you, but hiding it is not going to help. Issei remained silent, as there was nothing but silence for a few moments, as Juniper spoke while keeping her hand on him. Ice, what happened to your past? You have already gotten past that. Not just once, not twice, but 3 times. You have revealed me your past after you started to have faith in me, so why not reveal to the rest of my family? I understand that some scars won't go no matter how hard you try, and I speak from experience, you know that, don't you? Juniper's words made Issei snap out of his sadness. He spoke after a moment. He had no reason to hide his past from his friends, family and mentors as he spoke. Fine, I will tell. But it would be best if I tell everyone, including the Arc siblings, the elder Arcs, I mean whoever can arrive for the moment. If possible Willow and Ann to also arrive. I want everyone to hear about this. It is about time I tell everyone. I won't be keeping this a secret. Juniper was surprised as she spoke. Are you sure? Issei nodded in response. Yes, I am, and trust me when I say this. Azazel is not a man you can trust, that is all I can say. Jean nodded, wondering what Issei meant by this. She could only hope that she would tell everyone. Juniper had a small smile seeing this. He was also trusting her family completely, and that is what she wanted. She knew Issei trusts them, but complete trust is hard to gain, and that was what was happening. Tell everyone to meet at my personal house. It would be best if everyone gets involved. Scene change. Hallway, Issei's residence, 10:30 p.m. Ice-chan, are you sure of this? Persephone asked with concern. She did not oppose the fact that Issei was going to tell this to them, but she was concerned. Issei nodded. I understand you are concerned, but me hiding it is not going to do any good. Issei spoke, I am not going to lie, you are more of a mother to me than my own birth mother, and you know how to act as a grandmother alongside Au.RageRevan, and I care for you like a son does for his mother. Persephone could only hug him in response. She was finally happy that Issei was going to close a huge chapter on his past. He tried doing it multiple times, but he was unsuccessful. They had to thank Juniper for pushing him in the right direction. No one interrupted the hug from Issei's family. He managed to get over his past once before. Now, it is time to share it with the others, to those he can trust and have faith in. Issei never saw Miki as his own mother, and they never blamed him for that. She has lost the right to become Issei's mother ever again. They soon split up in response, as Persephone spoke. I am so proud of you, my child. Issei could only nod at this, as Hades added. We all are happy that you have finally started to have happiness in your life. You needed to get over your past, and now, I believe it is time you tell it to the rest of your friends and family as well. Issei nodded as he spoke. I still remember when we were once enemies, when you hated me and most devils, but seeing the change in you showed me who you really are. You have become a better person. And you treated me like my own, and even came alongside me, with Persephone and your daughters, and for that I thank you, Hades. No thank you, Dad. Hades could only ruffle his head and spoke, yep, that was not my best moment, but you know that you are responsible for making me better. Had I not met you, I would still be known by the nickname, Angry Walking Catacomb. Persephone chuckled at the nickname that Melano had given him once, which was later being used by almost everyone from the supernatural world. Hades grumbled, remembering on how Azazel abused that nickname, and it took him everything to not kill that crow right then and there. Issei then spoke. Either way, I am glad you chose your current human appearance, your old one looked like you know. Melano then added, a rip-off Ainzul gown. Hey, come on, please don't do this to me. Hades spoke while looking down, as Persephone rubbed his back to calm him down, as Macaria spoke. Everyone, the others have arrived, you all should come outside. Issei nodded as they all headed outside. He could see the elder arcs and the arc siblings have arrived, including his two mentors and Willow, all of whom had arrived when their student had asked them to come. Everyone, may I have your attention? Juniper spoke, garnering everyone's attention, as Juniper continued, I believe Issei would love to have some words to share. It is about time he tells us about his past. Issei soon stepped forward as every eye motioned towards Issei, who stepped forward as he spoke. I believe you all should sit down and have a drink, cause this is going to be a long one. Issei spoke as he revealed every single thing about his past. He refused to hide any detail from his friends and family, or his mentors. This went on for a few minutes, as everyone intently listened to his past. Those that knew of it were either saddened or were seething in rage. If none of you believe me, here, I can show my memories. Issei was about to show his memories using the boosted gear, only for Juniper to appear and shake her head in response. They believe you, Ice. There was nothing but silence, only for it to soon explode into extreme anger. Willow, Anne, John, Aqua, Jade, Rosemary, Invictus, Artemis, Jean, Elizabeth, Liam and Alcy were the angriest amongst the group. Some were also having tears in their eyes due to what Issei went through. In her anger, and some in her Mandarin armor, with Willow releasing her one wing, the elder arcs were radiating their aura, while the arc siblings were in their primed forms. They were beyond livid at what happened to their father. That scumbag die, I am going to make sure he is never born, Willow shouted with anger in her tone, as Anne added. You got that right, I will keep killing that so-called pillar over and over again, and responded with equal anger. The two mentors were beyond livid at what Issei had gone through as Liam asked, is that why you and your family came here? Liam asked with a lower tone, as Issei noted, yes, and truth be told, I wanted to get away from my past, and I and my family stumbled upon Arcadia. We only came here by coincidence and I guess, I couldn't be any more happier. Liam nodded as he spoke, once I get my hands on Goru, I will rip that sorry excuse of a father to shreds. I wholeheartedly agree that Mickey has no right to call herself anyone's mother, Alcy shouted with anger in her eyes. She hated what Mickey had done to the boy, as Artemis added, I am going to have fun seeing Ika fall into despair once the truth of her so-called brothers comes to light. I agree on that, I wish I could rip Dai with my bare hands, Elizabeth spoke with anger in her voice, as Roswas Ark added. I am going to enjoy tormenting my counterpart for what she had done, put that so-called Valkyrie in her place. Roswas's words were agreed by all three of her siblings, as they vowed to do the same. I would love to have a word with those students in Kuo, especially those two named Mitsuda and Motohama. I am going to enjoy tormenting them, Invictus spoke while sheathing his blade, as John responded in his primed form. Don't forget about Murayama, Kaori and Ika, I am going to enjoy breaking them and burning them alive for what they have done to Dad. John spoke with fury in his voice, what he went through in Beacon for a few weeks. Issei had to deal with it for years. Aqua then added. You got that one right, and don't forget the rest of the Hyoudou clan. I will enjoy torturing those brothers of Goru. They are a disgrace to their father's legacy, Jade then spoke in agreement. And if that pillar even thinks about going after us, I will freeze that bastard for all eternity, Rosemary finally spoke in total agreement. She hated her so-called uncle, as it reminded her of her birth father, someone she despised. I am going to stomp anyone that even looks down upon Dad. I hate Dai even more. He reminds me of Nicholas the First. Hate him in every way. Saffron added her own words. She could see the resemblance between Dai and Nicholas as she spoke. You are right on that one. I can't wait to destroy everything those bastards cherish. Dai's empire will crumble. I will make sure of that. He will die no matter what he does. The moment he steps into Arcadia he will be dead. Saffron spoke with anger in her voice, with Violet soon adding. Then we have those sluts that are in his harem, especially Gabriel and Ingvild of his world. I will beat their beautiful faces over and over again and rip that Seraph's wings and Ingvild's throat and shove it down their mouths. I will rip apart each and every one of those girls if they even think about convincing us to join his pathetic harem, Violet spoke with anger. The only one that didn't spoke was Bianca, who was trying her best to control her fury. At first I did not have faith in Azazel, but now, I have no respect for him. Arcadia will never open their borders to the faction leaders. Jean spoke with anger in her voice, as Lupin responded. I agree, they are shameful and disgraceful in everyone's eyes. They shouldn't even step in our lands, Arthur added in agreement as he spoke. Indeed, brother, those faction leaders are almost no better than the ones in the Three Kingdoms. They should be disgusted in themselves. Arthur's words were agreed by many in the room. Issei was surprised by how supportive the Arcs and his mentors are of him. He soon took a deep breath and spoke. Everyone, I have a request. Can I be the one to handle the faction leaders? Knowing them, they would want to come to Arcadia, but I will be the one to deal with them. There was silence for a moment as they wondered what Issei intends to do. Jean then asked, are you planning to accept their message? Jean spoke, as Galath responded, Ice, we are not going to accept their proposal of peace and surrender Hades and Nyx. Who said we are going to do so? Issei spoke with a grin. Let them come and shove their bullshit to us. They will soon get angry and make the mistake of insulting us, giving us all the reason to put them in their places. Truth be told. Issei spoke while looking away. I can see Dai requesting for my daughters, and I am not going to let that happen. Looking at my wife, I can see that Dai could have easily manipulated her as well into his charms, just like Nicholas once did. That is why I want to deal with the factions personally, cause if we don't, the factions will come here, just like we once did, and with how they are, they will do anything in their power for an alliance, and with their hatred of me, there is no telling what they will do. I won't let Arcadians suffer under them. That is why, let me handle this. They will try to activate an alliance, but that is not going to happen. Issei spoke seriously, looking at the Elder Arcs, as the Elder Arcs and Juniper looked at him for a moment. They all looked at the Red Dragon Emperor and future potential Emperor. Seeing that he would do anything for Arcadia, Liam spoke for the Elder Arcs. Very well, Ice, we have faith in you. Juniper, help him in every manner you can. Juniper nodded as she spoke. Yes, Dad. I will. The others also agreed in this, as they had faith in Issei. In that case, let's get to action. Jean responded, you are alright with the negotiations. There should be no hatred in your words. Pretend to have some tolerance for them. Jean nodded in understanding as Issei spoke. Bianca, I will give access to the cosmic juggernaut. By tomorrow morning head to pick those leaders up and take some guards with you as well. Bianca nodded. She and the Arc siblings have calmed down, as Liam then asked. Ice wanted to ask, what are your thoughts of the Emperor proposal that I asked you for? Liam's words made those minus the Elder Arcs, Nyx and Juniper surprised, as Persephone asked. You were considered for being the Emperor. Why did you not tell us? Issei looked at her and responded, with what those outsiders were doing I couldn't get time to inform, and it did slip out of my mind, since I am working on something. Persephone nodded. She never was a big fan of those from the Four Kingdoms, and now she had a good reason of hating them as well, like many of the Arcadians. Issei then spoke to Liam. First let us deal with the faction leaders, then I will accept the throne. Liam nodded. He and the Elder Arcs were happy by this, while Juniper, Issei's family and friends and the Arc siblings were ecstatic, even Willow and Anne were proud of their student. They soon agreed on preparing on what needs to be done in order to deal with the faction leaders. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi Draken placing a pipe bomb in the Hyoudou mail. The next day, Astral Express, 4 p.m. Just like Issei had planned, Bianca was in charge of piloting the cosmic juggernaut, or how it was nicknamed as Astral Express, since Jade suggested a better sounding name, and Issei went along with it. Earlier the news of Issei's torment spread like wildfire. Many of the Arcadians hated at what their general and hero had gone through. The 501st were the angriest, with Rias, Ingvild and Akeno of Arcadia, intending to torture and torment their doubles for making their general's past miserable. They hated their DXD doubles on par with the pillar of the factions. Bianca was piloting the Astral Express as she soon put in the codes for landing the expression under Arcadian territory while clenching her fists in anger. She hated on how Dai was trying to look at her in such a lustful manner. The only reason she was even bearing this was because she had promised her father to help her with the plan. Landing the train, she then spoke with a serious tone, "We are here, faction leaders, the Emperor and Empress will be expecting you shortly." Serziches walks forward and speaks, "Thank you Miss Bianca, I would love to meet this emperor of yours." Bianca nodded as she watched the faction leaders walk ahead, but not before she clenches her fists in anger to the point of bleeding. The fact they had the audacity to insult Issei angered her to bound. Worse, the pillar was constantly ogling at her, which made her even more angry. It was no wonder her father hated them. She wanted to use her icon to make an example out of Dai, but she controlled herself. She had to knowing what her father has planned for them. Taking a deep breath, she soon followed them as she walked forward. Rias then muttered, "Hey, I was wondering, do you wish to join Dai's harem?" Bianca coldly responded, "No, I am not interested, and I believe now is not the time to discuss these unimportant things, let's get a move on." Lady Gremory Rias frowned at her attitude, while Dai growled, seeing Rias did not get the Arcadian girl to her side. Bianca looked at them and had a frown. The fact that she thought about flirting with his own niece made her disgust to no bounds. Soon they reached a room where the emperor and the rest of her family were waiting. Their Dai was drooling at the Arc sisters. Issei noticed this and narrowed his gaze, and before changing his stance to a normal expression while controlling his temper. Bianca stood next to her sisters. Juniper also glared at Dai, knowing what exactly a kind of a person he is. She saw his appearance and could relate to Nicholas to some extent. She detested her old gullible self and on how she fell for a man that almost destroyed her kingdom, her home, for his own desire for power and greed. However, while Issei and Juniper recognized the faction leaders, none of them recognized that it was Issei that was the future emperor of Arcadia. "Greetings, faction leaders, I am the future emperor of Arcadia, and this is my wife, the current empress of Arcadia." Juniper also greeted them while controlling her anger. "Hello, my name is Juniper Arc, and this is my husband Issei Arc Hyoudou." The faction leaders were stunned at this revelation. Even the Hyoudous that accompanied the factions were stunned that the person they were seeing was their long-lost disgraceful son. They couldn't believe that Issei was the emperor of Arcadia. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" Issei spoke, looking to Serziches, who was shocked beyond belief. None could believe it was Issei that they were looking at. He looked completely different, and the god sensed his aura to be much different than before. "No way, this is impossible." The one who spoke was Miki Hyoudou. There was no way that her disgraceful son could be an emperor of Arcadia. Issei spoke indeed. Mother Issei spoke, the mother with utter spite, making her shudder, noticing the sheer disdain Issei had for his own birth mother, Goru, and the rest of the Hyoudous glared at him for his attitude. "I am going to be the emperor in the future, believe it or not, and if you are wondering, I married into the royal family, fell in love with my now wife Juniper, and now, I am with her. We are actually coming close to our 1-year anniversary. I did not accept being the emperor at first, but the elder arcs convinced me otherwise." Juniper added in response. "Indeed, and I haven't been any more happier with him, and besides, you don't have to believe it, the person you see is the same person, Issei Hyoudou, your former son, whom you neglected for a very long time, and yes, I know everything about the Hyoudous as well." Juniper spoke with a cold glare directed at the Hyoudous, making them shudder. Aika soon opened her mouth. "Brother, do you even realize that how worried sick we were for you?" Issei narrowed his gaze at Aika as he spoke. "I don't realize and I don't care." Issei's response made the faction shocked by his new cold attitude. They remembered on how he acted before, which was a stark contrast to his current attitude, as he continued, "I know you don't care for me, you never did, the only reason you do care is because this moron needs me to survive and create a charade." Issei gave Dai a glance, making several of them angry by what has happened. Even now, he hated his brother, who was just a nice person in the eyes of the faction leaders. "Anyway, we are not here for this, and I wanted to ask." Juniper spoke with a very cold glare that made even the leaders shudder. She was someone that they did not want to cross with. "So you are the faction leaders, huh? Why did you contact and how did you come to know about Arcadia?" Well, Azazel spoke nervously as Issei only responded, "Are you going to answer or not, Azazel?" Azazel was fearful. His guts were telling him that this woman was not someone he wanted to mess with. "We wanted to detect where Hades and his realm went, and that is how we found out about you. We used magic to see where he went, that is all, that's how we came to know about this." Issei and Juniper nodded in understanding, knowing this to be true. After all, that was what they told them. Azazel then decided to calm the situation, knowing full well that their chances of making an alliance have been compromised. He had to change the situation. Serziches was also thinking of the same as he spoke, unaware that his words are only making the Arcadians angry. "Anyways, let's not focus on that. Since Issei is now part of Arcadia, it automatically belongs to us. He was a disgrace, but him marrying the Empress, I don't think he is a disgrace anymore." Issei growled at the one who spoke, and this was Surzich's. He looked to his wife, she was seething, her draconic traits were in full display, even their children were angered by this, with Rosemary and John being the most angry by this. However, Issei kept his hand on his wife, making her snap out of it as he spoke. I am sorry, excuse me. Arcadia belongs to you just because I am married to the Empress. If you think that, take your nonsense and go back to your planet. Siskin Surzich's was taken aback by this, Issei's cold response. He gritted his teeth in anger. He would gladly put this so-called emperor in his place. You insulted my husband as a useless being. Did you really think I am going to take that lightly? If you are trying to make an alliance, then you are failing miserably. The faction leaders were horrified by this, as Serafol spoke. Please reconsider this, don't listen to this disgrace. Call my husband a disgrace one more time, Leviathan, and I will personally see to it that you are dead. Serafol shivered, sensing Juniper's outburst, as she released her aura, which made it clear she was a dragon. This cut Serafol off, making her terrified. They did not know how strong the Empress was, and that alone made them shudder. Issei once again kept his hand to calm her down, while giving a glare to Serafol, as he spoke. If you want an alliance, give us a proper reason, why should we ally with you? Otherwise, get out of my planet. Issei spat with disdain, making the faction leaders really angry. Surzich's tried to intimidate him with his power of destruction, but only he looked at Issei, who was not even affected, making him shocked. Alright, let's all simmer down. Issei, I know we treated you badly, but come on, can't you let it go? Issei glared at Azazel for even saying that. Just how condescending they can be. They think that Issei would just forget and forgive everything they had done. However, the next sentence made him really mad. And besides, you have such a gorgeous wife, you should be more welcoming towards us. Issei gave a glare towards Azazel, making him shiver as he shouted, releasing some of his aura. Stop making perverted comments about my wife, you perverted crow. Azazel was sweating buckets, and so were the other leaders. They recognized the aura to be that of Great Red's aura, making them horrified on how Issei reached this level. Juniper calmed her husband down as she spoke. Honey, calm down, I can take this from here. Issei reluctantly did so, as Juniper gave a glare to Azazel and spoke. This is a meeting for an alliance, we are not friends, I would advise you to take this seriously. Azazel gulped and nervously nodded, as Dai and those that looked down upon him not only hated his new attitude, but were starting to have a bit of fear towards him. Issei Rias tries to speak arrogantly, only for Juniper to cut her off and respond coldly. It's Emperor Lord Issei to you, Gremory, I would advise you to call him that. Rias gulped and backed away nervously as her peerage and Surzich's glared at her, but Juniper ignored them. She did not give two shits about what these morons thought of them. Anyways, what do you propose if you want to make an alliance? And unless you have a valid reason, don't waste mine or my husband's time. You are free to leave, since we have no interest in people like you. Juniper responded coldly. Issei looked at his wife, controlling her emotions from wiping these morons down. They had been constantly disrespecting and looking down on her husband, her emperor, and she was not going to let that happen. The faction leaders weren't happy with the way the meeting was going so far. The only one Issei could see so far, also having a frown, was Shiva, as he shook his head in disappointment, seeing how majority of the leaders were behaving. He tried to mind read Issei and his family, but he failed to do so, thanks to Issei using a barrier spell to protect his family. Fine, you want something in return, right? Serafol suggested, as Issei had an idea of what this childish Satan is going to suggest. He was ready to destroy her if she tried anything funny. How about you bring all your daughters to marry our pillar Dai? The Arc sisters and Juniper were shocked by this, as the Empress responded, excuse me. You heard her correct, that way we can strengthen the bonds between Arcadia and the factions, and you can even join the harem, and abandon this liar and pervert. Yusaka supported Serafol's claim, which made Juniper almost about to lose it. They have some nerve to ask sell their daughters to Dai. The Arc sisters were livid, with many like Saffron and Bianca seething with rage. They wanted to torture these two for even saying that. John was also angry, but he was calming them down. However, claps were suddenly heard in the room, and it was revealed to be Issei. He may have a mocking smile, but in turn, he was beyond livid. His daughters were not in his pawns in any way. Drake was controlling his temper as much as he could, which was something Juniper sensed, and she became worried. The Empress was well aware that if there is anyone who hated them in the same room, it was Issei, and even she was starting to see why Issei hated them so much. Bravo, I must admit, never thought you two would become two bitches who like sucking on their master's limp. Issei's vulgar words made everyone appalled, even Juniper, who knew his anger, was surprised by this. However, none could stop his anger or even judge that they were displaying it, while Issei was trying his best to control his temper, and he was close to losing it. But on the faction side, Issei's words made many angry, especially those that still looked down upon him as a rapist, pervert or weakling. Yusaka and Serafol were the angriest. You failed to understand, Dai-kun would keep your daughters happy, he has kept us happy. Issei looked at the midget Satan who said those words. He turned his gaze to Dai, who had a mocking and arrogant smirk. That smirk alone reminded the Arcadians of Nicholas, and it took them everything in their power to not go ballistic. Juniper was about to put him in his place, as her draconic traits were being revealed to her kids. She hated Nicholas, and seeing die. She saw him to be extremely similar to him, and she hated it. I am not giving my daughters to marry any of the members of the factions. If they want to marry someone, it is their choice, no matter what you do, you midget Satan, Issei angrily responded, to which Seraphol shouted with anger, as she had readied her strongest ice attack to freeze him solid. She was going to make him pay for insulting herself and several others. You don't understand, we can have a proper alliance with Arcadia, and Seraphol couldn't complete as Issei had grabbed Seraphol by the neck. She tried to use her magic, only for Issei to use the Great Hibernation to counter her magic. The audience was silenced by what was happening minus the Arcs, Surziches, and the Hyoudou clan couldn't believe that Issei was able to do that. The only ones that were slightly smiling were the Arcadians as they enjoyed everything that they were witnessing, seeing Seraphol's expression change from anger to fear. Seraphol was shocked, her magic did not work as Issei started crushing her neck, making her gag and gasp for air. The others were ready to stop Issei, but they feared that he would use Seraphol as a shield. I am not the same weak boy you all looked down upon once, try to attack me or my family, and I will not hesitate to see you as an enemy of Arcadia, and treat you as such. I will destroy you until there is no trace of you left, Seraphol Leviathan. Issei started to crush her throat as her face was turning blue. Some of the audience were starting to fear for Seraphol, while others tried to find a way to stop Issei. Ice. Someone spoke as Issei turned his attention. It was his wife, as she spoke warmly. You are wasting your time and killing her. You got better things to do. Issei looked at her for a moment. He could see her crying with fear, and her face was blue. He sighed and dropped her as Sona, Surziches, Grafia and some others rushed towards her. Nisama, are you okay? Seraphol took a breather and calmed down. Her face was tear-stained, as Surziches and Grafia glared at Issei with anger in their eyes. But before they could speak, Juniper spoke. But I am not changing my husband's decision. Our daughters won't be used for your pillar's happiness, let me make that very clear. Juniper spoke coldly as the couple soon took their seats. However, before they could speak, someone had spoken, which would anger the Arc family, especially Issei and Juniper, to no bounds. Shouldn't we be allies? Issei is my son, so we should be a family. Now that Issei has proven himself, he is no longer a disgrace. Goro had spoken, which made both Juniper and Issei beyond livid, while the children were angered by their so-called grandfather. Issei only walked to him, his hair covering his face. Goro thought he would be happy. Only for Issei to punch him on his chin so hard that it was broken. The Hyoudou patriarch was sent flying and crashed at the wall. Goro was crashed onto a nearby wall. Mickey and Ika rushed to him immediately, with Dai following suit. They saw that he had a broken jaw that was dangling and bleeding. Mickey shouted in horror and anger. Issei, what the hell is wrong with you? He is your father. Issei only retorted in response, father, tell me what he has done, fatherly for me, tell me. This bastard of a father took one look at me and decided I was not suitable enough. He always saw me as a weakling. Now that I have become strong, this bastard wants me back. I will certainly put him in his place. Issei brought out his black abyss. He was ready to disintegrate on a subatomic level. The faction leaders, including Shiva, were weary of the sword he was wielding. Shiva and Surziches noted its destructive power to be far powerful than they ever were seeing. Azazel was on the edge seeing this, as he noted it to be akin to a sacred gear. They were starting to become afraid of Issei, and they hated that. Juniper acted quickly, hugging Issei from behind as she spoke. It's not worth it, Ice, please. Issei looked at his former family. Both Dai and Ika had activated their sacred gears, with Mickey having a magic circle. She was angry but was completely fearful on what Issei plans to do with her. He took a deep breath and calmed down, as he kept his blade again. As Issei spoke, make sure Goro watches his tongue again. If he tries any funny business, he will be destroyed on a subatomic level. I will make sure of that. Issei's cold words were only looked by Mickey with utter fear. Her hands were shaking. He wouldn't deny it, but he had an internal grin seeing his former family suffer. Now then, I hope you have a good answer for what comes next, otherwise I will send y'all back. None of my people want your disgusting presence soiling my hand. Surziches and the other leaders that hated his presence were furious on what comes next, but they were starting to see why Issei was now a bigger threat. Then all of a sudden, Rias spoke while walking forward. You are just a weak being, how the hell did you become strong? I demand to know, Rias demanded as Issei only sighed at her face as he spoke. You are still the pampered, selfish and egotistical princess I remember, and to think you meant something to me. I have met a version of you that is 100 times better. Rias got angry at this attitude of his, but wondered who this Rias is. If you are wondering, there is an Arcadian version of you. She is an assassin and a loyal hand of the royal family. She is a way better person than you. She is mature and understanding, unlike you who is nothing short of a selfish brat. I am glad to have met her. Rias retorted in response as she spoke. You're lying. Issei shook his head as he spoke. Don't believe me? Here. Issei contacted Rias Arcadia, who appeared moments later as she spoke. You called, General. Yep, they don't believe me that you exist, so had to call you here, hope you don't mind. Rias Arcadia looked towards Rias and spoke, so you are the one who gave the general so much pain, huh? It is not nice to meet you. Rias angrily looked at her counterpart. Even the others were stunned by what they were witnessing, they were seeing two Riases in the same room. Allow me to introduce myself, my name is Rias Gremory, a half-demon, leader of the Shadow Company and one of the Shadows, an assassin of the Empress. Rias Arcadia introduced herself coldly. She hated being in the same room as them. Rias then spoke angrily. You are with this rapist, liar and disgrace, you should be with someone better like Dai, you should not be with this disgrace. He is a general, he is nothing but a pathetic liar, and a weakling. He deserves nothing. Rias Arcadia only looked towards her counterpart, took a deep breath, and spoke 3 words calmly. Are you done? Rias Arcadia looked towards Issei and asked, mind if I leave this room? Sure, just wanted to show that you existed here. Rias Arcadia nodded as Rias angrily charged her power of destruction, only for Rias Arcadia to blitz towards her and smacked her with her gravity mace, sending her flying. Rias Surziches aimed his power of destruction towards Rias Arcadia, who was worried, sensing a massive surge of power, only for Issei to act quickly and slice off his arm with his black abyss. Surziches lost his anger and looked in horror as he looked at his hand and clenched his teeth in pain. Grafia shouted in response, Surziches Sama. Surziches watched his left hand crumble to dust in just mere milliseconds as he spoke, I can destroy your hand on a subatomic level. This is one of the god keys I created, my own version of 13 Longinus. I could care less if you believe me or not, this is your only warning, attack any Arcadians, and I will kill you, let me make this very clear. Surziches glared towards Issei with anger in his eyes, as Issei brought out the white flower and sliced the area where his hand was cut, which caught everything off guard. You know, seeing you in pain is something I am going to enjoy. Killing you here is going to be all too easy for every single pain you have inflicted upon me, let this be your final warning, the next time. Surziches was surprised to see his arm regenerate as he spoke, I will make sure your wounds are permanent and irreparable. Surziches looked at him with fear in his eyes, many glared at Issei for his new attitude, but they were silent out of fear. He was able to destroy Surziches' hand and recover it and dare them to do something about it. They were starting to be terrified of what Issei was capable of. Are you okay, Rias? Rias Arcadia nodded as she spoke, yes. You can leave if you want, these people won't bother you, lest they want to face me. Issei spoke while removing white flower and bringing out Gizomatama as Rias Arcadia left the room. They all watched her leave as Issei spoke while dispelling his swords. But god keys were not the only thing I was able to find. Issei speaks as he walks behind and reveals the Excalibur to everyone from the factions, shocking them as they were surprised to see that Issei wielded the Excalibur. How Michael exclaimed in surprise, he knew what was in front of him, it was the true Excalibur that they have been looking for, with many of his own fellow leaders looking at him with surprise, as Issei explained because the old man, or that sorry excuse of the biblical god wanted to have the Excalibur from the Pendragon so badly that he decided to recreate the sword and failed miserably. Now I wield the true Excalibur. Issei explained in a mocking tone, as this angered the angels, including Gabriel and Irina, who hated his new attitude, so far he has shown no respect to any of them. However, Issei gave them a glare, especially towards Gabriel, who couldn't help but gulp at the glare he was giving them. Boy, Issei turned around to see the person who spoke was Uther Pendragon, Arthur, and LaFay's father as he spoke, the sword you are wielding is Pendragon property, I would advise you to return it back to us. Issei was left dumbfounded at the request, and so was his wife and children, they all were surprised by the audacity of this person to ask a demand. The prestigious Excalibur chose Issei to be its wielder, and they wondered what he was going to do upon this. They already hated the factions at this point, and their hatred was increasing even more. Juniper shook her head in disappointment, so far these fools haven't shown an ounce of respect to her husband and emperor. She controlled herself to not go ballistic. They'll know Issei's words made the Pendragons angry as he spoke, the sword chose me during my coincidental visit to your mansion, and there is no way in hell I am going to return this sword. I made a promise to someone that I will only give this sword to someone I deem worthy, and that person is already chosen, it is none of your clan. Issei's words did not sit well with the Pendragons, as Uther removed his blade and pointed it at Issei. The Arcs were ready to take this man down, however Issei stopped them, assuring that he got this in the back. Despite this, they had their magic at the ready to take the Pendragon family if needed. You have a last chance, you disgrace of the Hyoudou clan, you can either return the sword or else. Issei's eyes cut deep as he glared at Uther, making him almost shiver as he spoke. Or else what? You going to attack me? Don't make me laugh, as far as I am concerned, one wrong move, and it will only take me a minute to cripple you like, with my sorry excuse of a father there. Issei pointed towards Goru, who had a broken jaw, which was dangling from his face, with Aika and Mickey desperately trying to help him. Au.Ra was glaring at his son with anger in his eyes. He tried to bring Issei back now that he was powerful, only to be met with a strong punch to the jaw, cracking it completely. "You little bastard." Au.Ra charged at him only for Issei to narrow his gaze and swing his blade once. No one could see his slash or even make a move. The look that Au.Ra had was a look of fear instead of anger. His head soon dropped from his torso as LeFay and Arthur shouted in horror. Father LeFay and Arthur was their father. They desperately tried to reach out, only for him to fall to the ground dead. "I warned you, the next time you try anything funny with me, this is what will happen. If you don't like what I do, I will destroy every last one of you, and if you even think of harming Arcadia, I will make sure you beg for God to save you, cause the only God in this world will be me, and this God is not merciful," Issei declared coldly and seriously as Arthur glared at him and shouted with tears in his eyes. "You damn bastard." Issei pointed the Excalibur to Arthur's throat and spoke coldly. "Arthur, if you don't wish to meet the same fate as this fool, stand down." Arthur gritted his teeth and reluctantly stood down. He could only comfort his crying sister. Meanwhile, Bianca and the other arcs were having their own conversation as Bianca speaks with disappointment. "I can see why Dad hates them so much, even we are not fans of them. They are nothing but arrogant assholes." Bianca looked towards Dai, who was gritting his teeth in anger and helplessness as Issei already killed Au.Ra and dared them to do anything about it. "Honestly, it will only take us a minute to take majority of them down, while the stronger ones will be dealt by Mom and Dad," Aqua added as the Arc children looked at the faction leaders with utter disappointment. "Does anybody else wish to try?" Issei spoke with a glare as Michael was about to speak in anger, but Auden stopped him. He knew that if he tried anything he may meet the same fate as Au.Ra, who was killed by Issei without much effort. Dai suddenly had an idea as he looked towards Juniper. She sensed him looking at him and took a deep breath to control her temper. "I know what you are thinking, Dai Hyoudou." Juniper gave a glance and spoke, "And I am not interested in you, boy." Dai backed away and clenched her fists in anger as he spoke. "Why? My brother deserves someone like you. I am better than him, stronger than him, and more powerful than him. He is nothing but useless." The Arc siblings were controlling themselves from losing it as Juniper gave a death glare to Dai as she spoke while raising his aura. "I am married to your useless brother. You will either address me as the Empress. Do I make myself clear?" Dai shivered and backed away with fear. Rias was about to speak something, but Juniper has had enough. She dashes towards Rias and grabs her by the throat. Her draconic traits were being in full display as she chokes Rias. Serziches wants to do something, but Issei got in the way while speaking. "Don't even think about it." Serziches grits his teeth in anger, but he knew that Issei won't hesitate to kill him in any way as Juniper speaks with pure anger, her eyes turning reptilian. "If I ever see you insulting ice like you did just now, I will be the one to torment you and make sure you wish for death." Rias was fearful on what would happen. She was hyperventilating seeing the monster that was in front of her. Juniper sensed Ingvild open her mouth. Reacting quickly she spoke. "Oh no you don't." Rias was thrown and before Ingvild could react, she was given a throat chop that distracted her as she soon followed it up with a kick aimed to the stomach making her vomit up. She held her stomach in pain, looking at her attacker as Juniper spoke with anger in her voice. "Don't even try to use that sacred gear of yours in an attempt to control me or my family, otherwise the consequences will be dire." Juniper soon looked at Ingvild and spoke with a much calmer tone. "So you are Ingvild of Issei's world. You are just like how Issei described to be nothing but a disappointment." Asia went to heal Ingvild up. She looked to see how effortlessly Juniper was able to dismantle both Rias and Ingvild. She soon rushed to heal up Rias, who was being healed by Grafia and Michael. Dai, however, was still looking at Juniper. She was also willing to put him in his place. However, Issei has had enough as he spoke. "Will you stop looking at my wife?" "Why? She deserves better." "Listen brother," Issei cuts him off while speaking. "I am not interested in what you have to say, and stop gawking at my wife." Why you Dai charged towards Issei, as many expected from the factions for Dai to put Issei in his place. However, Issei only grabbed his hand with ease, without much effort. "What?" Issei only had a smirk as he spoke. "Let's see how tough you really are." Issei twisted Dai's hand making him yelp in pain. Everyone looked in horror as Issei spoke, well ready to snap his hand. "You never learn, do you? I was your older brother after all." Snap. Dai screamed in pain looking at his mangled arm as he glared at Issei. Asia rushed back to Dai as she shouted. Dai, the other girls that loved him also rushed towards him in fear of him being okay. "It's gonna be okay." Asia soon glared at Issei as she responded. "How could you do this to your own brother? What part of they are not interested don't you get? Some of them already have a spouse and they are not interested in your Dai." Saffron nodded in agreement as a glare from Issei made Asia nervous. She gulped in fear, knowing what kind of the person he has become. "Asia is right. How dare you do this to our beloved Anata?" Issei only laughed at her and spoke in response. "Oh, don't be mad. Your man was gawking at my woman and flirting with my daughters when they clearly don't want anything to do anything with them, and believe me, it is their choice on who they want to spend their time with." Akeno could only grit her teeth in anger. He wouldn't hesitate to kill her if need be, she vowed to make him pay one day. However, she was terrified on what Issei is capable of. He brutally killed Au.RageRevan and dared them to do something about it. However, someone spoke, turning everyone's attention towards her. I was right about you, you are nothing but a bad influence towards everyone around you, and you have even turned an whole kingdom against us. Issei only looked at her for a moment. He could sense the anger increasing in his family. They were willing to put this fox in her place as he spoke. "Aw, thanks for the compliment, I really like that you think of me this way, but news flash, I have no interest in you. Fox, your mate left you for a good reason, cause he saw how foolish you are." Yusaka bit her lip as she teared up upon hearing this. He really hit her where she was the weakest. Her mate abandoning her still stung her even to this date. Issei grinned seeing her face as he spoke. "Yes, you really are a fox in heat, and I am pretty sure no one aside from this moron would even want you." Yusaka was on the verge of crying as Issei walked away as Akeno spoke. "You should stop this man, Juniper, look at what he has done." Juniper glared at Akeno, making her shiver. Her sadomasochistic nature was acting up as she had spoken. "Hi, should I stop him?" Be grateful he only stopped at hand. And only spoke words to insult her. If he really wanted to, he would have wiped out every last one of you, and you all deserve it in every way. Juniper spoke coldly as she turned towards Issei and spoke. "I am not bearing these idiots any longer, let's end this meeting and send them back." Issei spoke in agreement. "I agree, they haven't changed even now, it is pointless talking with these idiots." Many gritted their teeth in anger, but they were fearful as John asked, "What? Were you expecting Serkant and his batch of supernatural to change?" Surziches glared at John for saying that as Issei spoke mockingly. "Nah, was curious to see what happened. But I guess as time passed they became even more stupider. And it seems like our dragons are quiet, aren't they? Albion, why don't you reveal why you have been silent?" Issei spoke with a grin as the divine dividing appeared on Valerie's back as he finally spoke. "No, this cannot be true, you can't be." Issei only grinned as he decided to reveal the boosted gear, which stunned everyone. Albion then declared Issei Hyoudou was none other than the Red Dragon Emperor. The audience was completely stunned by this revelation. This was impossible. How can he be the Red Dragon Emperor, the same person that they have been looking for all this while? This meant that Issei was the one that they have been looking for this whole time. Zeus looked in shock at first, but his expression changed to pure anger. Thunder was crackling in his hands as he boomed. "So it was you? You were the one to kill Artemis in cold blood, you bastard." Issei only looked towards Zeus as he spoke with a cold tone. "Guilty as charged, and maybe teach some manners to the daughter that is still alive. I won't hesitate to put you in your place." Zeus unleashed his master bolt as he shouted with his eyes crackling with thunder. "I will kill you and your family tonight." Issei narrowed his gaze and grabbed him by the throat as he summoned a black hole. Juniper put a barrier around herself, Issei and the factions, creating a strong dome around the ones mentioned. Juniper was in her dragon armor. The factions looked at the black hole in fear. How did he bring that in this place? Zeus was unable to move due to the intense pressure of the black hole. Juniper spoke while floating towards Zeus with anger in her voice. "I don't care who you are, but if you even think about attacking me or my family, we will not hesitate to put you God 6 feet under. Look at what Issei is doing to you and how helplessly you struggle. Now, keep in mind Arcadia has 3 others as strong as him, including myself, along with Office and Great Red. If you make Arcadia your enemy, we all will destroy you without any hesitation." Zeus lost his anger and became fearful. Many were terrified of the power Issei was able to gain. They now know what Issei was capable of. Dai was looking at Issei with anger yet fear in his expression. "You heard my wife, if you even think about harming my family, I will throw you into a black hole, and not even your soul will survive. Is that clear?" Issei spoke coldly as Zeus was hyperventilating. He was terrified of the monster that was in front of him. He was worse than Tiffin and Nyx combined. Issei then spoke again. "Is that clear?" Zeus looked at him with fear, unable to move much, as Issei only looked at him and disabled the black hole. He nodded with fear as Issei threw him to the ground as Juniper removed the barrier and Surziches spoke with an apologetic tone with fear. I am sorry, why your Highness, F for his B behavior, C can you please C consider an alliance? W we need to arrest N Nyx and H Hades for T their crimes." Juniper only looked at them and spoke. "My answer remains unchanged. Throughout the meeting, I have seen nothing but your so-called pillar gawking at me and my daughters, and none of you respect Issei and constantly see him as a useless liar, cause I know him for years, and yet he hasn't shown any of the traits you all seem to believe, so my answer of joining you guys is negative. I will never join the factions since you have zero respect to Issei, and you don't keep a leash on an important figure like Dai." Juniper spoke coldly as Azazel wanted to speak, hoping to reconsider. "Don't even think it," Crow Issei retorted coldly as he continued. "Hades and Nyx have very high positions here. Not only have they worked for their crimes, you only want them back because you fear them. We never were interested in welcoming you to begin with, we were only tolerating you, but no longer. The faction leaders looked at him with fear in his eyes, wondering what he was going to do to them. They were angered by Issei's actions, but were scared shitless on what he plans to do. Get out and don't show yourselves here again. Issei generated a huge magic circle, with the intention of sending them back. They wanted to speak, but Issei sent them back to the underworld of his world. Unbeknownst to them, he sent a voice recorder spell that was hidden in Surzich's clothing, which would report them anything that they would say. The Arcadians sighed in relief, as Aqua spoke. Good riddance, they were giving me a headache. Bianca nodded in agreement as he spoke. That guy, he was looking at me this whole time, even flirting with me. Did he try something with you? Issei asked with concern as Bianca spoke. No, I made it clear that I am not interested in him by ignoring him. I should have broken more than his arm. Issei spoke with a growl, as Juniper spoke. He even tried to look at me. I presume he tried to look at you girls as well, right? Juniper asked, as the Arc sisters nodded. Saffron then spoke. It took them everything for us to not beat him here, although I am glad that you put them in their places. Issei lost a bit of his anger and responded with a smile. I kind of enjoyed seeing their fear and despair in their faces. But I doubt we are done, are we? Rosemary asked, to which Issei spoke. Oh no, this is just the beginning. They may show fear, but in reality they are livid at how I was able to destroy their pride like it was nothing, and knowing them they will want my god keys and boosted gear, deeming me too dangerous. Juniper then asked in response. So any plans for that? Issei spoke with a smile. I will make them more desperate, make them beg and grovel for mercy, while putting a facade for an alliance, and make them play a game. I want to do so. I want to destroy any and all morale they have of even thinking about harming Arcadia, Issei spoke with a growl, as he continued. Anyways, let's go and rest. Today has been quite the day of enjoyment for me. I enjoyed seeing their arrogance turn into fear and despair, Issei spoke, as the rest nodded. They all left the meeting chambers to head back to their home to rest. Issei knew this was just the beginning of things to come, since the factions is not going to stop. But he also does not intend to do so. S2 Chapter 4. New Emperor of Arcadia. A few days later, Issei's room, Hades' residence, Arcadia, 9:30 am. Issei sat down on his couch. He was nervous, knowing that he was being crowned as the Emperor of Arcadia. He kept his hands on his face and spoke. I am going to be the Emperor. Why am I so nervous? I am already the Red Dragon Emperor. Partner, I don't know what to say. You have fought against tyrants, military leaders and a bucking Metal Gear. Don't make me mention that you survived a whole ass zombie apocalypse. Yet here you are trying to be nervous. Just man up and sit on the bucking throne, Drake retorted, trying to convince his host, who could only remain more nervous. Easier said than done, Drake, you know how much honorable this day is. I fear that I may screw up. Issei keeps his hand on his face and speaks. I just hope that I don't screw this up. You won't, partner. Go out there and tell Arcadia that you are the new emperor. It will be alright. Issei looked at his gauntlet and sighed. He then spoke. Well, what's the worst that can happen? Nothing. I doubt you will embarrass yourself. You are the hero of Arcadia. Get your act together and give a speech that will be remembered across all of Arcadia. Drake spoke as he cuts off the connection. As Issei spoke, I guess you are right. Issei headed inside the bathroom and got dressed up. He first took a proper shower and had a towel. He wiped and fixed his hair. He soon wore his dress that he wears commonly, since there was no official dress robe. He was going to wear a cloak which Juniper would give him once she gets to his place. He wore the clothing that he commonly wears, as well as he put on some perfume and got well dressed. Persephone soon knocked the door and spoke. Ice-chan, are you ready? Issei looked at the door as it was revealed to be Persephone. As he spoke, I am mom, just give me a few more moments. Okay, Juniper is waiting outside. I believe it is time you should get ready. Issei nodded as he fixed anything he had left behind and applied some perfume. He soon came outside, where he saw his wife Juniper waiting for him. She then spoke, now all that remains is your robe, and you are done. Alright. Juniper raised her left eyebrow and asked, I can sense you are kind of nervous. Truth be told, I kind of am nervous. I was never brought into a position like this before, and I just hope I don't screw this up and embarrass myself. Juniper shook her head. She was aware of this. This was a very big event, even for him, and she herself had a bit of nervousness when she took up the throne, all those years ago. She only spoke. You won't just act as if you were presenting the cosmic juggernaut when you were showing for your capstone project, your graduation project 2 years ago. Just think of it as giving a presentation based on your science project, alright. Issei only looked at her and nodded as he spoke. Fine. Good, then let's get a move on. We have to reach there by 11 sharp. Come on. Issei nodded as they all headed outside and got a move on to the Arc family mansion for the coronation. The Arc royal court was filled with people from all across Arcadia, with Issei's entire family also being present. Even the Arc siblings were present. They were in their royal armor as they watched a royal family succession. Their father, albeit adoptive, was going to be the one true emperor of Arcadia. They hear the doors open as a battalion of royal guards began marching to the center of the hall. Once they reached the center they all faced towards each other and stood in attention. From there Juniper enters the ceremonial hall. Alongside her are the elder arcs. As they began walking to the center, each of the royal guard raises their swords high up as they walk past them. Juniper was the first to reach the center, holding the Sword of the Stone, the combined version of Excalibur that Issei wielded, and was lent it to the arcs for the ceremony, alongside a couple of artifacts that show you are the Emperor or Empress of Arcadia. The rest of the elder arcs stood to the side alongside the royal guard, where Office and Hades are. Juniper nods and they began the ceremony. The sound of the trumpets can be heard as the doors were open yet again, now revealing to be Issei himself, or his current name Issei Hyoudou. He now wore robes and a hat that outfitted him. He walked with a serious yet gentle look on his face. He soon walked towards Juniper and gave his wife a nod, such that they can begin the ceremony. We stand today, a glorious moment in Arcadia's history, where a new ruler will usher the next generation of Arcadians to its bright future. This ruler is the first to be personally chosen by the Elder Arcs, to not have the blood of the Arcs, but to have the heart of one. Him gaining the icon of steel, Knights of the Round, is a prime example of this. Please may I present to you, Issei Hyoudou, the new Emperor of Arcadia, Juniper declared as she walked to the center and picked up a chest. She grabs 2 items from it, a scepter that has 4 jewels placed on it. These 4 represent the 4 founders of Arcadia, the color each representing them. Blue for Apricity, red for Aurora, green for Aurelia, and yellow for Anastasia, as well as the crown of Arcadia. This crown symbolizes Arcadia itself. Many generations have worn this crown and have led Arcadia through its victories and defeats. Now it will go to a new ruler, a ruler not seen for an era. Issei, please step forward and place your hand on the sword. For at this very moment, all of Arcadia will follow you until the day you die. Issei nodded and spoke, I shall. Issei walked forward and walks to the sword. He grabs the hilt and brings it back, unaffected by what was happening, since the sword did belong to him. He did feel a surge when he accepted the sword the first time, since Richard mentioned to him when he just recently became worthy of the icon of steel. He raises it high up as everyone in the ceremony hall claps for him, with his family doing it the most. He puts it back in his sacred gear as he faces his wife, who gestures him to kneel. She places the crown on his head as he stands up. He soon receives the scepter that he holds it in his right hand. Issei turns around facing the people of Arcadia. As of this moment, you will lead the people of Arcadia from then on until the day you die. We will pledge our loyalty to you as you will lead us through many trials, and we will stand by your side until the very end. Juniper spoke, as Issei nodded in agreement. He will do everything in his power to protect Arcadia. The royal guard began doing formations all around the ceremonial hall as they are now facing Issei. Seeing this, Juniper then declared, Ladies and gentlemen, may I present you, the new ruler of Arcadia, Emperor Issei Hyoudou. Juniper declared loudly, as the crowd all cheered, with everyone chanting one thing. Drake also joined in as well, as he chanted alongside the rest of the guests. All hail Issei, all hail Issei. Issei sat down on the throne, putting his cloak behind him, as he smiled. His eyes being yellow with a certain power. He was now the emperor, and he will protect Arcadia with his life. For today, the emperor of Arcadia will lead the new generation of Arcadians to a bright future. Scene change in the DxD world. Underworld, 8:30 AM. The leaders of the factions, along with the rest of the DxD team, had gathered to discuss on what needs to be done. Issei and the Arcadians had humiliated them. Not only they were able to secure the capture of Nyx and Hades, along with his realm, but also they failed to establish a proper alliance with Arcadia. What now? With that accursed Issei in charge of Arcadia, there is no way we are going to receive an alliance with such a kingdom like Arcadia. Surziches spoke with frustration. He despised Issei to the point of no return. He knew that his selfishness would never let him gain an alliance with Arcadia. That is not even mentioning that he does not want to let his own daughters receive happiness, he wants them to live in misery, Seraphil declared with anger in her tone. She was terrified of the monster that Issei had become, as Azazel added. Not to mention, his god keys are powerful, we saw one of them at action, and he was capable of doing so much damage, we can't let him have access to such power. Michael then added. You are right on that one, Azazel, he is too dangerous to be kept alone, he should be dealt with accordingly. But we need Arcadia's help if we need to combat RageRevan. Michael responded, to which Azazel slammed his fists on the table as he spoke. That brat, we underestimated him, he was a genius-level magician and an inventor, we should have dealt with him as soon as possible. You got that one right, we should have dealt with him. But regardless, we need his help, and how are we going to achieve that? Auden spoke with annoyance, yet there was frustration in his tone, as Yusaka spoke. Not to mention, that bastard had the gall to insult I will never forgive him for that. Yusaka spoke, remembering on how Issei insulted her and made her remind on her past where her mate left her. She will forever hate Issei for that as well. Other girls were equally angry, with Ingvild hating Issei the most. She hated on how he lied and deceived her. Was and will always be her shining knight in armor. Issei will never be that. But here, he is much stronger and much aggressive than before, he is trigger happy, and is ruthless. And won't hesitate to destroy anyone that even looks down or demands him anything. Either way, he does not like us, we need to make sure he at least has a good opinion for us, but your hatred of him showed that he does not even want us to step in his lands. So what would you suggest? Shiva asked with an irritated tone. He was not a fan of how some of the leaders are basically at Dai's feet, but he knew now was not the time to discuss this. Zeus then suggested. How about we capture one of his daughters? Make them suffer like my daughter did. Zeus's words were agreed by Xerxes and some others, as Xerxes spoke. I agree, or his son. Azazel responded, seconded that. This is madness, I refuse to go by this method, his children had nothing to do with this, I will not agree with this at all, Shiva retorted, as Xerxes wanted to speak, however someone spoke. Oh, so this is how you want to play then? The faction leaders looked around, they were unable to find out about his location. They recognized who exactly it was, but they were more worried, they knew this was Issei, who spoke. Right here. The doors suddenly exploded, revealing a very angry Issei, Juniper, Nyx, Persephone, Hades and finally Office. They all were beyond livid, causing the anger in this room to go away, as Xerxes demanded. What makes you think you can? Juniper has had enough, as she enters into her armor and dragonizes herself, so that she could handle his destructive aura. She grabs him by the throat and slams him to the ground. She soon follows it up with a kick to his stomach before he could react and kicks him, sending him flying. How? Xerxes spoke with horror and disbelief, as Juniper continues, well, I don't prefer violence, I am not the type to forgive those that have harmed my family, I will make you regret even thinking about doing this. Xerxes was about to transform into his true form, however Issei brought out Oath of Judah and shouted. Off power elision PD, and Issei activated a dimension with several clockworks. The gears around the whole ab were turning, which was completely restraining the leaders like it was nothing. They felt their power was gone. My powers, what have you done? Juniper only gave a sadistic grin, as she followed it up with a kick to his stomach, as he coughed up blood. Graphia wanted to intervene, but Hades was on the case, as he looked at his wife and nodded. They unleashed plant and skeleton-based restraints surrounding all the others present, they tried to use their magic to break free, but it was useless. Office added her own snakes to prevent them from escaping, they were completely trapped. Shiva was the only one that made sense, so he is free to leave the room if he wants, but the others, let this be a message to what happens to those that mess with Arcadia. Issei spoke coldly, as Shiva could only leave the room, as he looked at the others who were starting to have terror in their eyes. Persephone, you are alive, Zeus spoke as Persephone gave him a scowl and spoke, yes, I am, and you bastards had the gall to go after my grandchildren, we will make you regret even thinking about doing this. Zeus could only glare at him, as Hades walked forward and punched him so hard in the face that his 2 teeth had broken. He glared at his brother and shouted, how dare you betray us? Hades did not respond as he kept punching him over and over again in the face, till his face was completely a bleeding mess. He looked at Hades with pure defiance. Hades gritted his teeth in anger. His younger brother had become really arrogant, even more than his old self. Zeus's swollen face made Hades recoil with disgust as he grabbed him by the neck and slammed him to the ground. He passed out from the pain, as Hades spoke, that's what you get for messing with my grandkids. Juniper gave a smile, as Xerxes looked at Juniper with fear in his eyes, as she spoke, what are you going to do? This Juniper brought out her claws and ripped apart Xerxes' wings, making him scream in pain. The worst part is that she did so, in a slow and painful manner, making him scream and cry due to the immense pain. Graphia and those that cared for him could only helplessly watch him suffer the agonizing pain. Graphia herself was weeping seeing on how Juniper was torturing him. Xerxes was a weeping mess of his former self, he was completely broken. Azazel was sweating buckets, he noticed Issei walking towards him, he was cracking his knuckles, as Azazel spoke. No, Issei please, I beg you. I won't go after your children. Azazel spoke with fear as Issei spoke to Drag. Drag, boost my legs 10 times, I want to put this filthy crow in his place. Azazel gritted his teeth in anger, as he was sounding just like Hades at this point, but he was too scared to make his move, as Drag spoke. You bet, partner. Issei boosted his leg 10 times, as he pulled Azazel up by his hair, and kicked him so hard in the nuts at such blinding speeds that nobody could see. The strength of the kick was powerful enough to break both of Azazel's balls, crushing it to nothingness. Azazel screamed in pain, as he soon passed out with what had happened, he gave a glance towards his brother, who was hyperventilating with pure fear. He knew this was the same move that had destroyed his own balls, he had to get some special magic repairs, which took him 2 months of constant visits to the doctors, to make sure this happens, the factions were doing everything in their power to do so. There you go. Issei soon turned around the fearful faces of the leaders and the DXD team, some were crying seeing what the Arcadians had done, as he soon glanced towards Dai and Ika, who were passed out with fear. Dashing towards Aika, he grabbed her by the throat and started to choke her, as Dai and several others shouted, "Aika, let your sister go," Issei Mickey demanded Issei, who only returned a glare making her fearful. She knew magic wouldn't work, since he can just use Aika as a shield. He looked at her sister who was fearful of what will happen next. "I will let her go, hand me the items that Dai stole from me," Mickey gritted her teeth and responded, "Never." Alright then Issei started to crush her neck making Aika grasp for air. Mickey and the others looked in horror as he spoke, "I will wipe every last one of you then, if you don't hand me the items. The Hyoudou clan of Arcadia will assist me in this fight. I will remove any trace of the hiatus of this world. I will wipe out every last person that stands in my way. You can stop this by simply handing me those items." Mickey looked at Issei. He was really serious. She looked at the Arcadians, none of whom were stopping him in any way. She had no choice. If she had to save her clan, she had to do what he asks. "Fine, send me the list," Mickey responds, as Issei speaks. "Excellent. Here you only have 10 minutes." Issei brings the list out and gives it to Mickey as he disables the Oath of Judah on Mickey, who teleports out of there since she had to get the stones. Tiamat then shouted with fury, "Drag, why don't you put a restraint on your hosts?" "He is killing my host." Drag only responded with a cold tone, "What about you, Tiamat, manipulating your hosts to hunt down mine since centuries? This was another reason why I asked my partner to hide my gear from the factions." "Wait, is this true?" Juniper spoke with a shocked tone as Drag spoke. "Yes, Juniper, it is true. She would have hunted her own brother down without any mercy." "You." Juniper was ready to destroy Aika and her sacred gear as Issei spoke. "No, Juniper, she does not and will never have the power to overcome me in any way. You can be assured of that, and besides, remember how we planned this meeting to happen, right? Rest assured, Tiamat will never see the light of the day ever again." The Arcadians remembered this as Juniper nodded. She looked to see Mickey hand a small bag as she spoke with fear. Here is the items. Issei, please let go of my daughter." Issei took the items with his free hand and checked for any traps and spells. He did not trust his so-called family and had to make sure they are not rigged in any way. He dropped Aika as Mickey was checking for any wounds. Issei then spoke. "Well then, it all checks out, we can leave now." The Arcadians nodded as he spoke. "Oh, and one more thing, I wish to speak this before I leave this room." What do you want?" Yusaka spoke with fear in her throat. She was now terrified on what Issei will do to her and her daughter. He then spoke, "I propose a challenge, me against him." Issei pointed to Dai, who acted brave so as to not make anyone suspect him, as Issei continued, 20 days from now on, in the DXD world time, me and Dai will have a clash. If you guys win, you will have Arcadia's alliance and assistance against any threats. But what if you win? Seraphol spoke with fear as Issei spoke. "You will hand over every sacred gear that the factions have found, including the Longinus without exception. If you accept this fight, I honor my word, and you will honor yours. Is that clear?" The faction leaders thought for a moment before they all nodded in agreement with Michael speaking for everyone. "We do, Hyoudou. Good, we will meet again in 20 days. Until then, goodbye." Issei and the others teleported back to Arcadia as the faction leaders were released from their restraints. They all headed to their loved ones that were damaged as they vowed to help Dai in any way to beat Issei. Dai clenched his hands to the point of drawing blood. He vowed to defeat and take down his brother at all costs. No matter how strong he is. Scene change. In Arcadia. John's room, Arc family mansion, 8:30 p.m. John was playing some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on his father's Nintendo Switch, which was something he was enjoying. He was playing with Cloud right now, and he enjoyed playing it. Suddenly, his door was being knocked upon as he spoke. "Yes. John, it's me, Violet." John paused the game and put the switch on sleep as he opened the door and spoke. "Yes, Violet, is something wrong?" Violet shook her head and spoke. "No, but I have some news." "Yes, what happened?" Violet spoke with a deep breath. "John, I am pregnant." "Nice joke, Violet. I am sure that this was a prank that Lily had set you up in." Violet sighed as she responded. "No, you moron, I really am pregnant." "I am 3 months pregnant." John remained silent as he asked, "Since when?" Violet responds, "I found out a few weeks ago. I decided to have a checkup when I kept vomiting and numerous food craving episodes or mood swings." John starts to freak out upon this as Violet rolls her eyes and sighs as he speaks. No, my mothers and Grandma Persephone will kill me. I am so done." John was now father, a happy yet fearful news for the next in line for the throne of Arcadia. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.